Hello and welcome to the ABO Outfitters Podcast. I'm Andrew Murray here in studio today with Matt Baier. We're gonna throw
top of the day to you.
Top of the day, top of the afternoon. We're gonna throw a couple of short podcasts out here to you guys. We've been a little slow here lately on the podcast. It's been busy work-wise and everything else, and we created a podcast initially with the intention of kind of doing some, hunting stories and longer episodes. And then this spring we did our first one called The Goods, where we broke out a segment of the podcast with the fishing guys at LOA and kind of broke down some really specific tips and tricks for fishing opener.
Right. And so that one was like just a short, actually like excerpt from
the original podcast.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're kind of like going to dive into real specific items. Like this time we're going to talk about just cell cams, catch up from where we left off. Not as quite in depth, and then kind of whenever we breach more specific topics, we'll call that one like the goods topics or the goods portion. So
yeah, exactly. So we appreciate feedback from all you guys that do listen consistently, and hopefully you guys like this, and hopefully it allows us to produce consistent podcasts more frequently.
Yeah, 100%.
So without further ado, let's dive right into the trail camera topic. And so, last time we just kind of broke down a few different types of trail cameras that are out there, and just scratched the surface, I think, on
early season, preseason scouting.
Yep.
I think it was before the season even started, so we were just trying to gather the inventory.
Yep, exactly. And so now Matt and I have been hunting together, although we haven't even really sat yet,
right?
Just because the bucks that we're chasing, we haven't had an opportunity to really set up to kill them yet.
That and other trips get in the way.
Other trips get in the way.
Yep.
But we've been running the cameras now really since, the later part of August. And so now today is officially the 14th of October. And so we've got, almost a couple of months of activity on these cameras now. And so wanted to give you guys just an update on where we're at.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Yeah, we've got a few different properties that we're running cameras on, both personal and public, private. And it's kind of cool to see the ebbs and flows of the deer activity with the weather changes, the pressures, the moon phases and whatnot.
Yeah.
And now we're, like Andrew said, we're in mid-October, so it's right about that time where it's going to start heating up here, at least in Minnesota. It's kind of that mid-October time when you start getting into late October. This weekend we got a really awesome cold front coming through. They're predicting snow in the forecast and locations, so we're getting jacked.
Exciting times if you are a whitetail hunter in the Midwest. And so to kind of circle back, the camera that we were talking about when we had our initial podcast, or one of them that we had out here, was the covert. The covert that we had here was the Blackhawk.
Two. We had both the Verizon, the AT&T model, which is their upper end model. So there's the Code Black, which is the AT&T model,
and then Blackhawk, which is the Verizon LTE model. And so both are kind of in the same price point as far as quality goes. And as far as covert goes, this is definitely one of their higher end cameras from a price point perspective. And really, kind of across the market, I would say it's a higher end camera. Now, we've been running these, like I said, for a couple of months, and I can say without question, mine has performed
hands down
flawlessly.
Yep.
It is unbelievable. Photo quality is great. The consistency in which the photos are sent to me is unbelievable. I'm really happy with
even sensitivity. Like, you're not getting blown up with 100 wind pictures or sun deflection pictures or anything like that. That just seems to be a solid camera as far as capturing goes.
Yep. And so, you have within the apps now, so Covert has the app, and that's how the photos are sent. So for those of you that don't use cell cams, you have a bunch of options as far as how the photos are transmitted to you. I personally found out from my wife that I don't like to get text messages all through the night when deer are cruising through. And so I decided to push those notifications to the app itself. So then when I wake up in the morning, generally the first thing I do now is look for the Covert app and see what my camera was doing all night.
Christmas morning, every morning.
Yes, exactly. And so that's where they'll show up. And the sweet thing with the Covert, and all of these cameras have this app, but you can really adjust everything with it: video versus still photos,
image quality,
the amount of time.
It also does take real-time photos, which is a nice feature.
Real-time photos, which
so
is
you can
really
request
cool.
it. It'll turn around to real-time. It'll just take a picture and send it to your phone 5-10 seconds.
Yep.
So
if you're concerned that your camera isn't working, if you haven't had good activity for a couple of days, which we've had happen, you do a real-time photo, get the photo back, so all right, camera's still good, not a problem.
I could see it being beneficial if you're, trying to sneak out of work early, or you're late to the stand, life gets in the way and it's pushing the time when the deer are on their feet. And you're like, oh, shoot. So quick, take a photo. But again, it should, if you have it set up on instantaneous, it should send it to you if there was one there. But still a nice feature.
And I've really enjoyed playing with like the timing of the intervals in between photos. And so it depends on where you have your camera set, but if you have it in an area where deer move through rather quickly, you can reduce the interval down to as low as 3 seconds, and it'll take photos every 3 seconds. You can have it go up to a minute, 2 minutes. And so there's just a lot of versatility and flexibility with this camera.
Right.
It has a really nice wide camera angle.
Definitely.
The other thing I've really enjoyed is I've had it out now for 2 months. I still have 60% battery life on mine.
I just pulled mine up. I'm at 70.
Yeah.
I had like a week where I didn't have mine out, so I saved some. But
so
good reception, good battery life, and I think it's just running like the regular 8 AA's or 6 AA's or something like that.
Well, this one, so mine at least, I don't know about yours, mine took 12 AA batteries. So it runs off of, I think, 8, but then it'll start to draw from those other ones as well as the battery gets lower. So I'm not sure exactly how that works, but in any case, I really didn't know what to expect. And I have several thousand photos on that my Covert has taken. So it's not like I'm in a spot where it's only sending me 2 pictures a day. I'm probably getting 100 photos a day, say on average, or something like that. Probably not quite that much, but anyway, it's sending enough photos where,
and it's not eating the battery.
Right. It's not eating the battery. And so, overall, we've just been
super impressed.
Really happy with it.
Another nice feature is that you can do all the firmware updates right from the camera. So like if you're checking it and moving it, you set it up, you can do it from the field too.
Yep.
There's an option right there on the camera, so you don't need to download anything or bring anything out to the field. You don't need your computer with you, so it's all done wirelessly. It's nice.
Yep, absolutely. So, these are obviously cameras that ABO sells on our website. If you ever have questions about it, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll fill you in. One of the things that a lot of guys ask me about is the cell phone plan, right? Yep. What does that look like? And also, let's say somebody comes up north to hunt or whatever, but they've got T-Mobile. So what does that mean for them? And so the nice thing about how these new cameras are working now is that because I have an AT&T plan personally, it doesn't matter what type of plan you have on your phone at all. What you want to do is choose the camera and the cell phone plan that has the best service in the area that you're going into. So I have AT&T, but let's say the area that I'm hunting in, that I'm planning to use the camera, my brother uses Verizon, and I know he gets better service. Then I would want to get the Verizon camera to work in that region because it's going to get better service there for me. So that's one thing to point out.
That's a very good point.
Is that I think a lot of people maybe look at this and initially it was kind of had to sync up with with what type of phone you were having because of the way the communication worked. Now, because of the app, these photos are uploaded to a cloud, and then that works with the app on your phone. And so it doesn't matter what type of phone you have as a carrier. All you need to know is what service is going to provide the best possible service in your area. So that's pretty neat too.
And does that go industry wide on the other cell cameras as well?
As far as I know, it does. Yeah. Anyone that has now an app-based delivery for their photos, that's exactly how that works. Yep. And so
awesome tip.
Yeah. So that's a great tip. And, and these plans are really pretty affordable. I personally do mine month to month because I will most likely shut it off, in December and give my camera and my batteries a break, and also just to kind of make sure that the camera doesn't get beat up too much over the winter. But you're looking at like $7.99 a month to get. I think I pay
$1,000, right?
I pay $7.99 a month, and I get 1,000 pictures a month. And so for me and for where I'm using my camera, that's more than enough for what I've had to use so far. Obviously, if you're using a camera on a spot, like a
food plot or a feeder in states that allow it.
Feeder, if you're in a state that you can hunt over bait, probably not going to want to put. You'd want unlimited if you're going to use a cell cam. I don't even know that I'd suggest a cell cam in some of those situations because of the consistency that you have to go in and update the feed. In those situations, at least for me, I don't have enough experience with this yet, but I think it'd be tough. Right. Obviously, all these cell trail cameras now have a solar charger kit that comes along with it that you can buy and upgrade it with. And so that's a possibility, but I don't have enough experience with that yet to say, whether that would be ideal or not.
Right. Yeah, I'm paying the it's $7.99 for 1,000 a month, and if you run it for 4 months and you don't have to go out and check the camera consistently, or just to go get your peace of mind, like I'd pay $32 for 4 months of not having to drive out there and swap cards and walk out. Yeah, just the silent factor and the instantaneous factor for $32 for the fall. That's nice.
Absolutely. Now, just a couple of just like examples, I think, for me, and you can share one too, Matt, of how this has been a benefit. Cell cams in general is that, where I'm hunting, where Matt and I are hunting on some public land right now, I've transitioned my cameras over scrapes. And what's been nice about it is that one of the bucks in particular, I'm pretty confident is moving elsewhere. And when those big scrapes show up, I just get really antsy to go out and check those cameras. I mean, it just drives me nuts. And so now I'm trying, part of the reason why we haven't hunted yet is because we know, because of the cell cams, that those deer aren't transitioning through those areas consistently yet, certainly not during daylight yet.
Right.
Where we feel like we got to be in the woods in a stand hunting them. And so that to me has been a huge advantage, I think, in terms of staying out of the woods, and bothering those deer and continuing to check and move my non-cell cameras on the perimeters. And, just, again, giving us the intel that we need to know when it's go time.
Intel and less intrusive.
Yep. And I know you've got a buck down south that you've got a cell cam on, and you're trying to get your family on them.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a little too far for me to commute every day to go, or every weekend to go to try to hunt him. But this deer's been pretty for the most part on a routine. He's going one way in the evening from bedding ground and going back in the morning, so he's making a little loop if it's, if it was for food or if it was for now checking scrapes, or just he's got his playground he likes to go to in the middle of the night. And it's kind of cool. You can see, depending on the weather patterns, of when he's getting up to do that routine. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out here the rest of the fall. I know my brother and my dad have been sitting a little bit when it works for them to travel to get there. But
that's awesome.
Yep.
So on that point, and the deer that Matt's and his family are chasing down there, the camera that you have on that buck is another cell camera, Spy Point.
Correct. Yep.
And that's the Cell Link Micro. Correct.
Yep. I got a few more of those basically just because it's a price point cell camera. You can get them in the depending on the sale price, but you can get it from $100 to $150. I think they retail at $150. So it's much more reasonable to buy multiple cameras and to go put them out and try to cover more ground.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I think you've also have some too. We've seen that the performance isn't quite up to the top tier cameras, but there's been some glitches. Maybe some when they send the photos or firmware updates or stuff like that. I know you had a Baier that got after an antenna, so then that one went down for a little bit. But for the most part, it's still a pretty good camera that I've seen. I still would like to investigate their cell link deal too, that you can put to a non-cell camera to see what the performance is of that with their SpyPoint technology. But
and I think my overall feedback on that camera would be exactly like what you said. It's just been inconsistent, and I think for me, my hope or my goal in having a cell cam is that it's sending me pictures so I don't have to go in there. And with both of my SpyPoint Link micros, I've had to go back in there quite a bit. In fact, one I don't even have in the field right now, which I think that might have been the Baier one that took the antenna off. But it's been, both Matt and I have had to do updates to them. It seems like the ones that we've just put out and left there and not moved around have done pretty well.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big camera mover guy. I'll put a camera in a spot that's not a trail, that has very little activity, because I'm curious if the buck is possibly using that as a sneaky travel route. And so I'll go throw a camera up for 3 or 4 days, and if he's not using it, then I'll move it. And so I think part of my problem with the SpyPoints is that they have this really, for lack of a better word, fragile, I don't want to say cheap, but it is, antenna.
Right.
And so the one of mine I'm pretty sure broke because a Baier was fiddling with it. The other one I'm pretty sure the antenna broke because I just was transporting it in my bag. And so the one tip I have for guys that are using those cameras is just screw the antenna off.
Yep.
Put it in your front pocket, whatever. And then when you get to where you're going to set it, get the camera set, screw the antenna on, and then you're good to go.
Right.
Another tip I have is, and I found this just cruising online, is if your antenna does break, I went on to Amazon. Bingfu is the name of the brand, like BINGHFU, I think. And I bought 2 antennas for $8.99, and I replaced both the antennas on my cameras, and now they're both operational and good to go again. And so, they've been, I think you've had pretty consistent photos with them. I'm not super happy with the trigger speed. I've had a lot of butt pictures.
And for some reason, I've had a lot of fog.
A
lot of dents. Like, I don't know if it's
early morning.
Something with the lens and the construction of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any dew and it's a really moist, humid morning, we had just a ton of days where you couldn't even see. You could see that there was a body of a deer in front of it that triggered it, but you couldn't see anything.
Yep.
So that would be one negative thing. But for overall, I would still give it for an entry-level camera, I'd give it a solid B grade, I would say, for a camera. It does get excellent cell phone reception. I used it in a spot where my phone wouldn't work, but the camera would. So I left the camera, and I still could go home and get the pictures. So it worked in that aspect. Long-range trigger, I noticed in one instance where it actually did a good job is the reach of the trigger. It's, for a price point camera, it's not quite as, it doesn't have the quality or image as like the Covert per se.
Yep.
But it's a little bit more of a fuzzy. You can still request the HD photos and get that sent to your phone for it's like 50 requests for $5, which isn't bad. So.
Right. So, I think for me, even like if you're moving that camera a little bit, I've gone and I've actually pulled the card and checked it, and then those photos are the full res photos, that you would get. And it's only, it still is only, I think, a 20 meg camera.
Right.
And so it's not, you're not going to have just like ultra high quality photos, especially if it's a borderline evening. We had a couple of pictures like that were in that last light scenario before you got the full flash, and we could kind of make out that we thought it was one of the target bucks, but it was pretty tough. Even with the HD, we couldn't really for sure identify which buck it was. And so, it's an entry point camera, so there's obviously entry level price point camera. So there's obviously going to be a few hiccups with it, not as high quality. A few little knick-knacky things that you're going to have to look out for and watch for, but overall, they've worked. And
I think that's just electronics in general. You get what you pay for, and I mean, there's other brands out there competing with the SPY points in that realm.
Right.
And I haven't used them from the reviews I've read. There's the guys that love them, guys that hate them. So I think it kind of goes with just you spend the money, you're going to get a little bit higher quality stuff in the electronic world. So
yep.
What about this time of year? I know we're running longer than we wanted for the goods, but speaking of the goods, since we're in mid-October, I know you mentioned we've kind of started targeting the scrapes and seeing that the bucks are now checking the scrapes pretty frequently. What other tips could you give on your strategies in this time of year for placement? Well,
for me, it's it's all about narrowing down that if you don't have a buck that you're going to kill yet, finalizing and picking that with your cameras that are over your scrapes, because in the next, especially with this cold front coming in this weekend, every buck that's on that property is going to be hitting it at some point in the next 4 days. So you'll know what your inventory is, and what is available outside of a flyer buck that's going to come cruising through in, mid-November looking for that last doe. And so pick out that buck, and then once you get that narrowed down, you're still gonna probably see a lot of nocturnal activity on those scrapes for your mature bucks. So then it's just a matter of fine tuning where that buck is coming to and going from, and that's where I like to use those ancillary cameras, maybe even my non-cell cameras in places that are a little bit more inconspicuous, easy to get to, but just fine tune and narrow down that travel corridor. Wait for the right wind and hang your set.
Right. Yep.
So. Yeah, but I mean, this is the time of year when having cameras on scrapes is fun. Having a cell camera on a scrape, as Matt and I know, is really fun.
Yeah, or even if it is a buck that is coming out at last light, or it's a certain time, he's coming out in shooting hours. If you have that narrowed down where he's coming from, and kind of where he's going to, or his food or his scrape line that he's checking, and you have a set hung, then put that camera right on the trail next to your stand, and then you're going to know exactly when he comes by your stand.
Yeah, I mean, that's the coolest thing with the cell cams. I hung a stand this week to hunt this front that's coming in, and I put a cell cam there, not really even on a spot that's a trail, but it's actually in a shooting lane of a potential shooting lane of where I could kill this deer. And I'm just curious, and then over the few days, what deer have moved through there, how they walk through that lane. Are they moving through it quickly? Are they stopping at all? Are they milling around to eat the acorns that are there? And so, you can literally just get all types of information from these cell cams, and really adjust your hunt according to it. That's the coolest part.
Right. Yeah. That, or you'll be slapping yourself for not being out there.
Exactly. So
I know my cousin, he was cussing himself for he hunted hard for 2 days, didn't see anything as bad activities, so he headed home to help out with the fam stuff and left camp, and very next morning there he was standing. His 2 target deer walked past the stand middle of daylight in the morning. So
yeah. And I think that's always just part of hunting. But what do you do with that information? So then you categorize that. You go back, you look at the weather on that morning or that evening that they did come through, the pressures,
wind direction.
Why did he come through during this time? And then the next time that those circumstances come through, you got to be in that stand, and hopefully get a chance to kill them. So
100%.
That's where it's at. So anyway, there's your trail camera breakdown. I hope you guys like this. Again, please give us feedback if you like this format, and we'll keep trying to pump it out. Check out on aboutfitters.com. I'm rocking, if you're watching online, the new Blaze Orange. The new Blaze Orange hat.
If you're an upland game hunter or getting ready for rifle season. Great hat.
Great hat.
All orange.
Great edition.
Yeah.
And so check that out. And until next time, thanks, guys and gals.
Happy
Good luck.
hunting.